Hi everyone, I'm Matt Lachlan and welcome to TV3 Sports Special Summit Football, 100 Years on the Hill. In the next half hour, we will speak with some former players and coaches and examine why it is special to play for this high school. Right now, Paul Spahala is standing by in the Hilltopper locker room.
Thank you, Matt. There have been any number of great athletes who have worn what used to be the maroon and white, and of course now is the maroon and gold. But perhaps none in recent memory can match the exploits of Willie Wilson.
The first time I touched the ball, we scored a touchdown. I like to use the word we because when you're playing and when you're playing with a lot of good people, we should be used because there's never an I in team. And that was something that Howie drilled in us too, you know.
Willie's varsity coach, Howie Anderson.
He played in '71 for the first year, and we were upset by New Providence the last game of that year, and then had undefeated seasons in '72 and '73, so that while Willie was here, we only lost one game in 3 years. He was just the kind of football player that a lot of coaches don't have the privilege of coaching during their career.
I think about our team. I think our team would rank up there as being one of the best teams in Summit history, and I'm talking about from my sophomore year to my senior year. But as far as I'm concerned, I really don't care what I'm ranked because, you know, I couldn't have done it by myself.
The most electrifying thing I ever saw on a football field was Willie's run back against the Providence on Thanksgiving Day. I mean, they're still talking about that one. That goes down in the books. I mean, people just, you know, their mouths were agape over that. But that's the kind of thing he could do. He could turn a ball game in one play.
Prior to signing with the Kansas City Royals, Wilson received advice from a group of interested Summit professionals. Former Hilltopper and group member Gil Oren.
When Willie had a choice of going to Maryland to play football or to the Kansas City Royals to play baseball, I was called in as an attorney to give him some assistance. And the first thing we did is formed a little group within the community here to advise Willie, an accountant, a banker, an insurance agent, and an investment advisor. We formed a little team to give him the very best advice we could from the community as he launched his career. And everybody that I called willingly agreed to help, and I think it helped Willie get going. The rest of it, Willie did himself, obviously.
He was the finest high school football player that I've ever seen, and I've seen an awful lot of guys that have eventually ended up at the pros, pro level. You know, I had the great honor of playing against guys like Gale Sayers and O.J. Simpson and Larry Zonko, which I broke my nose a couple of times, but if I can recall those guys and their abilities at a running back, and then you know, it's kind of hard to equate Willie to a Paul Warfield, my contemporaries and stuff like that. But I think Willie would have been awfully competitive with him, and I agree with Howie. Had he gone to Maryland, he would have been in a Heisman Trophy run.
John Mallory has a unique place in Summit football history. He is the only Hilltopper to play in the NFL.
John was drafted by the Eagles, and then went and played with Atlanta for several years. Also played in the World Football League, and I saw him play several times with both the Eagles and Atlanta. Just a fine football player. He still holds a lot of records at West Virginia, where he went to college for return yardage, and he just played defense for West Virginia, as well as being their key return man.
Former Governor Livingston opponent and current Summit coach Jim Benedict.
My junior year, I think we lost to Summit something like 42-7, and I chased John Mallory down the field, and I remember my father telling me that I think you were catching him, you know, you were only 30 yards away from him. I think you might have been getting kind of close to him by the time he scored. But I think it was 42-7, something like that. And then our senior year, we went out with a vengeance and only lost to him 14-7. So, you know, we were very aware of how good they were.
Before Wilson and Mallory, there was another Hilltopper who many will never forget.
Quannog was an outstanding athlete. Without a question, had no equal in any sport. And frankly, was one of the best high school athletes I've seen come out of this area, bar none. Well, he was well coached, for one thing. He had a tremendous amount of natural talent, tremendous physical talent. As a high school freshman, which was unprecedented at that time, he was playing first-string varsity. Good basketball player, not great, but good. outstanding pitcher in baseball through aspirin tablets, absolute little tiny aspirin tablets rather than pitches. So he had great physical talent, and he was a competitor. Chester was a real competitor. He really was.
But there are others who have proudly worn the Summit uniform. Former Penn State Nittany Lion Tom Odell set a school record for interceptions.
Now, as a sophomore, I played left defensive back, and I broke the Summit School record for interceptions, which I guess it was 8. I don't know what the record before that, maybe 7, but, you know, 8 interceptions. I think the reason I got it was because they saw 5'9", 5'10" defensive back, 155 pounds, and they were picking on me. And the more they threw to me, the luckier I got. And that's the only reason I can think I got 8 interceptions.
Former receiver, assemblyman Bob Franks.
Quickness, his ability to react. He was just had a remarkable sense for where the ball was and where the action was going on the field and how he could exploit opportunities. Tom was just a remarkable athlete.
3-year varsity quarterback Steve Schroeder.
One of the things that we used to do on Friday nights, we used to get together at either the captain's house or one of the senior players' house every Friday night, and Coach would show films, and he would show films of previous Summit High School football games. He would show a lot of the real good teams of the you know, the Johnny Mallory-led teams, and to watch those guys perform and to see them play, it made you want to emulate what they were doing. They had some great talent. We had talent, but you have to do it on the field.
Summit has been blessed with gifted athletes, but they've also had outstanding coaches here. For 31 years, Howie Anderson led this program. Now the athletic director, he told us how he came to Summit.
Well, a friend of mine from my hometown, Mount Vernon, New York, knew of a vacancy here while I was in the service. So I flew up from Texas, where I was stationed, and had an interview in February, I guess it was. And they offered me a job, which I took, and started that September 1956. I graduated from Rutgers and then coached their freshman football team with Frank Burns for a year, and then went into the service for a couple of years. So my coaching experience was just the 1 year at Rutgers, so I was very fortunate to come right here as a head coach.
The community was equally fortunate. Anderson fashioned a 3-4-1 record in 1956. 2 years later, the Hilltoppers won their first conference championship under Anderson. The New York native stayed for 31 years and won 12 conference titles and 7 state championships. He ended his career with 186 wins. But back to the beginning.
We were opening the season at Roselle Park, and won the toss and elected to receive, and a back by the name of Tony Cardone took the kickoff and ran it back for a touchdown, and I thought to myself, gee, this is not going to be so difficult, and I'm sure that the fans said to themselves, boy, do we have a coach now.
That they did. But Summit was no stranger to talented coaches. Prior to Anderson's arrival, the Hilltoppers were led by Pete Kandrat, who won 2 conference titles in 8 years. Summit principal Don Geddes played center and tackle under Kandrat.
Pete ran the show. Pete was one tough cookie. He coached in Union before he came to Summit. He was a boxing coach, which he never let you forget. And he was personally a tough guy from Pennsylvania who played hard-nosed football, and that's the way he taught it. And that's the way he expected you to play it. I remember a terrible defeat in our opening game of my senior year against Springfield Regional over at Memorial Field, game that we probably should have won. We lost Chester Cornog on a serious injury in the first quarter of the game. We lost the lead, and we eventually lost the game. And I remember Coach Kandrat telling us the second day of practice that we're going to start the season all over again. I had no idea what he really meant by that. told us that this was a football, and this was the purpose of the game was to advance the ball up and down the field, and I knew we were in trouble. It was the worst week ever put in, including boot camp. It was absolutely awful. But we came back the next week and won, and he was trying to instill pride, and he was trying to instill in us faith in ourselves, and he did that. And we came back, we had a great season. I remember that very, very well. And by the way, he and I are still friends, and he still keeps after me. He wants to know if I'm doing my job. I remember that in particular. I think that was one of the most outstanding incidents in my whole high school career, the fact that you could be way down, and with enough hard work, you could come back. I never forgot that.
Geddes also played for 2 years under the first legendary Summit coach. Elwood Cornog was at the helm for 21 years, from 1926 through 1941, and again from 1943 through 1947.
Coach Cornog was just a landmark case in high school athletics. He coached all 3 sports, football, basketball, and baseball. He did it for many years without an assistant. He followed his brother, who was also a head coach here in Summit, which not too many people remember. Just a very, very fine gentleman from the old school. Always had his glasses perched on top of his head and his pipe in his pocket, and they were both going all the time. And a great basic skills guy. Great man for coaching basic skills in all sports. Very fine guy.
Following the 1986 season, Howie Anderson retired as head coach. In his 31 years, he won 2 of every 3 games Summit played. One of the all-time coaching greats. Tom Odell.
I think Howie just wanted to take this whole program and make it a top-notch program in the state. I think he did it through the discipline. Nobody is as well organized as Howie Anderson when it comes to putting a practice together, a game plan together, whatever. Howie, and running this practice, you know exactly where you're supposed to be, at what time, and what to do when you got there. I think Howie had a strong belief in the discipline in the organization, and if he ran that right and kept things simple and took the athletes that you have in Summit, that you'd be a winner. And I think he took that and he went with it and he won.
When we got back here to the locker room, told the team and the coaches that I was going to step down, that it was time after 31 years for someone else to take over the reins of Summit football. And fortunately, we have an outstanding coach who has done everything that you could possibly want with a program that I have a lot of pride in, and it certainly has gone ahead since Jim Benedict has taken over the reins.
My experience with it, when I first came here, I don't think I was that much aware of the tradition. I grew up in this area. I grew up in Berkeley Heights. I was aware that they had a lot of excellent teams, but I don't know if I really knew that the football was approaching its 100th anniversary and how many great teams that they had here. I also don't know if I was aware of the overall spirit of the community and how interested they are in the football program. And I can testify now after 5 years that we have a great tradition, that we have a kid that's very, very goal-oriented, and they're successful academically as well as on the football field, and it's just a great place to be.
There have been countless memorable games played in the past century. Streak-breaking wins against Union and Westfield, to name just 2. But when it comes to rivalries, 2 opponents most frequently top the list: Madison and Milburn.
Madison was unquestionably the big rivalry. There was, and it emulated from the head coaches, Ted Monica and Howie Anderson. They had those great battles during the years of Johnny Mallory against Pete Jelliba's teams. I remember watching the game right here on this field when Summit beat Madison, and I think it was 13-6. Johnny Mallory beat Pete Jelliba, and that was Summit's undefeated team.
Milburn in my junior year, and a lot of people think that, how could you say that when Madison, when we had a big sellout here, 7,000 or 8,000 people, and they had a kid on their team by the name of Pete Jelliba and stuff like that, would have been the game. But I think the game was Milburn at Summit at Milburn, when they had a real outstanding team, and we really upset them.
When we were sophomores and we beat Madison in the second game or third game of the season, I guess it doesn't matter. We beat them. They were ranked very high in the state, could have been 1, 2, 3, somewhere in the state. We ended up beating them, a very young team. They were all senior team. We came back to Tatlock Field. we couldn't get the buses in the parking lot. I mean, the community was so much behind us. I mean, this is after a year that was a terrible year, going into a year that they didn't even have an idea of what it was going to be about. I would say 1,000 people jammed in the parking lot coming back, cheerleaders, the band, parents.
The biggest rival was Millburn. The rivalry between Millburn and Summit, I don't think has any equal. People who are new to Summit might not have known that, but the old-timers in Summit know it. The rivalry was so intense that in order to kind of keep things under control, the principals of the two schools in those days devised what they call the Summit-Millburn football dance. And on the Saturday night of the Millburn game, we were all invited to either Millburn or Summit for a dance, and we just assumed that was a nice sportsmanlike thing to do. What we didn't know was that the principals had in mind keeping an eye on everybody, keeping everybody in one room at the same time.
Beginning in 1971, Thanksgiving Day in Summit signaled a showdown with New Providence.
The game I remember the most as a sophomore was the Thanksgiving game. The Thanksgiving game that we lost to New Providence when Alaco scored a touchdown on, we had a goal line stand, and if we stopped them, we'd get the ball back, and if we didn't stop them, they'd keep the ball and we'd lose, and they scored a touchdown, so we lost that game. And that game stuck out in my mind more so than any other game because that game pushed, I think, our class and our team for the next 2 years to go undefeated.
New Providence is great. I had a thing with the Alaco brothers, Frankie and Richie. We were good friends. There was always that thing, you know, a competitiveness against each other. We worked out in the summer times together, and then we had to play games together. My junior year, they came over, and they were going to blow us out. Frankie was going to throw for 1,000,000 yards. It was going to be a great game. We ended up beating them, I think, 49-0, and it set the stage, I think, for the years to come with Richard Alaco coming up and the Willie Wilson years and all that.
Howie Anderson's last state title came in the Meadowlands against Rawway in 1980.
And then our kids didn't let the location or the fact that it was very cold and the fact that Rawway was about twice as big as we were and favored, didn't let those factors enter into it. And they played a very fine football game. We were ahead 7-0 at half. And then a great back for Rawway, Butch Young, took the opening kickoff at the second half and ran it back for a touchdown, so it was 7-7. And then we got in close, missed a field goal, then got in close and made a field goal to make it 10-7, which was the final. And they were lining up for a tying field goal when the clock ran out. And it was a great football game and a great win. And the facility and the year and the team that we had that was a great year for Summit football. It was Mike Serino, who was the holder, and Robbie Bradle, who was the kicker. And most of the time, the holder is going to give confidence to the kicker and tell him to keep his head down. And Mike and Robbie, of course, you know, had a different kind of relationship. And I found out afterwards that Mike said to Robbie just before the snap, he says, "Don't blow this one."
Summit's most recent state championship came in 1988, a thrilling overtime victory against Dover.
The second series of plays, we just started running some counter plays and went right down the field. Matt Duffy broke off a nice run for a touchdown for us. And we missed the extra point, which was shocking because we hadn't done that. I think it was blocked, actually. And then we went the whole rest of the half, and right before the end of the half, Dover threw a screen pass and went in for the touchdown, and then they missed the extra point. And then we just went back and forth the whole rest of the game, and ended in a tie. And then we, one of my assistant coaches did a great job. He was recording all of the plays and what kind of success they were during the game. So you get about a 5-minute time during the overtime where they allow you to just kind of get yourself together, get your thoughts together. And he went through all the plays and picked out the top three plays for us. And I said, "That's it, we're running them 1, 2, and 3. I don't even want to know about it." And we went boom, 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 and scored in 3 plays. Then we missed the extra point. And I said, "Oh, this is how we're going to lose it," you know. And they never got a chance to score. Mark Smith made the tackle that was go down in history for Summit as one of the great tackles down on the goal line, stopping Billy Sachs. Mark was probably at the time 140 pounds. And Billy Sachs was probably about 215, and Mark stopped him on a 1-inch line or something like that. It was hard for me to see. I looked out over the, you know, down the field, and Howie was right down there making the call, and I saw him jump up in the air, or, you know, going like this, and that was jump up, meaning that we won. And that also shows Howie's enthusiasm. You know, I catch him on film a lot when we're filming the game, and then I see it on Sunday, and he's jumping up and down whenever we score a touchdown. He's still got the enthusiasm of a sophomore player.
Gifted players, great coaches, and tremendous rivalries, all part of the Summit tradition. As you can see, it's a special feeling to put that Hilltopper uniform on.
Summit football means integrity. It means tradition. It means a high-quality program. And it means a football program which focuses on kids and helping them to have confidence in themselves, helping them learn how to be successful, and how to take defeat.
I've been very proud of the teams that we've had in the 5 years that I've been here, because I think we've managed to achieve, to reach our potential. That's something that we're extremely interested in our athletes doing. We know that there are going to be years where you can't win every football game, and there are going to be some lean years. But what we're interested in is taking our football players and making sure that they improve from the opening day of practice through to the last game.
Summit didn't always have the biggest, the fastest, or whatever, but we always found a way to win. And when you have a tradition of excellence in a program, sometimes that helps to overcome a lack of talent and helps you go that extra yard. And that's really what Summit football is all about. There were some years here that Summit didn't necessarily on paper have a 500 ball club, but they would end up 7-2, 6-3, 8-1, because the tradition was there, and losing was just not a part of that tradition.
First day of practice, that was one of my key things to say to them, is that you're different because you're playing for Summit. And then I'd say that, you know, playing for Summit involves some responsibility on their part too, because as far as training, and we want you in better shape, and we want you better rested and better fed, so that there is some responsibility for playing for Summit, but that it is something special, the fact that you play for Summit and not for one of the other communities close by.
I can honestly say that I lived for each and every Saturday during the fall weeks. And I can remember I went to elementary school at Brayton, and I can recall several teachers mentioning that I should stop daydreaming, looking out the windows at the old Memorial Field where they played football. It was a big deal, and I could not wait for the day when I wore the so-called maroon and white.
The boys will come to these games and they'll imagine themselves being a Dave Morton or you know, a Matt Duffy, or one of the boys that played here, Carter Westfall or Garth Ballantyne. And they come and they see that, and it gets them real excited, and they can't wait for their opportunity to get out here. And that's what they tell me when they get to the high school. You know, boy, I can remember coming down here and how much fun I had watching those games when I was young.
Watching the Madison Summit game with Pete Gilbert Madison and Johnny Mallory and Sidney Rhines and Brent Cromwell, what a group of... You grew up in that area wanting to wear a maroon and white uniform. It was just a fantastic feeling to go and watch the games. To be able to put a uniform on and actually step on Tadlock Field as a sophomore was just unbelievable.
The same tradition that we were talking about has spilled over into the youth football. The players who, after they graduate from high school or college or both and get a little settled in what they're going to do, they come back and they coach in the program. I would say year in and year out, about 75% of the coaches are former Hilltoppers who are coming back and coaching in the same program they came up in. So you have a lot of tradition and continuity there as well.
Football tradition, and whenever our kids take the field, I think that they have the feeling that we're Summit, and maybe we're not going to win, but you know, you you've been at a ball game?
Summit football is it's a total experience. It's an experience of dedication on the part of the athletes. They work year-round in a strength training program. We practice long and hard out on the field, and we preach to our kids that you're going to work as hard or harder than anybody else in the state. We're very proud of being a small school and being able to compete in a conference of Group 3 and Group 4 schools. And over the course of the years since we entered the Watchung Conference, I'm shocked sometimes. Other coaches talk to us like we're a powerhouse, and we kind of view that we're underdogs every game. But that's what it is. It's a total experience of dedication and hard work.
So, Paul, it's a season-long celebration of the football centennial here at Summit. It will culminate at the end of the year.
That's right, Matt. On November 13th and 14th, it will be Alumni Weekend here in Summit. Several hundred former players have already committed to come back for the celebration, which will be topped off by a game against Governor Livingston right here at Tatlock Field.
That's right. That's November 14th, a game that we will televise. We hope you can join us for our high school coverage then. Until then, we thank you for joining us tonight as we examine Summit football, 100 years on the Hill.